The Bank of Canada has been really busy over the last 3 years. When they started increasing rates, they went up 8 times in a row until they paused. They increased 2 more times after that, but the beginning 8 times in a row. And as rates have been coming down, they decreased 7 announcements in a row until pausing the last announcement. But we have their next announcement coming up on June 4th, and what they do or do not do could shock the housing market. Welcome back. My name is Tom Storey. I'm a real estate agent here in the city of Toronto. I'm going to answer 4 questions for you in today's video based on what Bank of Canada does or does not do. If you enjoy this content, make sure to give it a like, get subscribed to the channel. If you want to book a call with my team, you can do that in the first link in the description. So about a week ago, as we were leading up to the June announcement from the Bank of Canada, odds were pretty high, 60 to 70%. That they were going to decrease rates again, probably by 0.25 basis points and get us to 2.5 on the overnight rate. But then the inflation numbers came out. And this is something we were all expecting, that inflation was going to be lower because the carbon tax was, well, not removed, but at least brought to zero by Mark Carney. In fact, 3 weeks ago on our podcast channel, when we were interviewing Doug Porter, who's the chief economist at BMO, he said this was going to happen. And I have a feeling the Bank of Canada knew this was going to happen as well. They're going to have the data before anybody else. But now they have a decision to make. Inflation is under 2%. Their mandate, their only mandate, is keep inflation around 2%. But when you look at all the projections from all the major banks, most believe that at least by the end of 2025, Bank of Canada will get that overnight rate somewhere between 2 and 2.5%, currently sitting at 2.75%. And over the last few years, when the Bank of Canada would make a rate announcement, it was like headline news. You'd be refreshing your Twitter page to see what they did. Even in my office, we'd like huddle around one person's computer and see what they were going to announce. Now it's kind of like second, third page news. We've gotten used to this. You know, there's other things going on with the trade war that we're spending more time focused on. Let's address 4 things that could be impacted by what Bank of Canada does or does not do. The first thing is this mortgage renewal cliff that we keep hearing about. And Doug Porter put it best. It's probably become a bit of a speed bump right now. Like if you really look at what rates have done over the last 12 months, they've gone from the mid 5s to the low 4s. That conversation about the mortgage renewal cliff that everyone online was trying to scare people about. Yes, some people have payments that are higher. I doubt that's going to be the downfall. It's going to crash the housing market. I think at this point in time, rates are at a pretty good place. That people won't love it, but they would have qualified for this rate they're getting today 5 years ago with the stress test anyways. The second question we're seeing a lot of is, should people go fixed or variable? Maybe they just purchased a property. Maybe they have a refinance they're looking at. They have renewal coming up. All these different reasons. So let's just do some quick math right now. If you're a purchaser, taking a look at what your options are. So in this example, I'll do purchase price $650. And you can see the difference between the down payment that you'd have to put down on the property. We'll go over here to the 20% down just to give you some context on where rates are at today. So right now, if we're going to customize this, this would be fixed rate, right? So you can see like, you know, the fixed rates are anywhere from 4.9 to 4.25, kind of in and around that range. And that would be for the 5-year fixed owner occupied property with 20% down. So those fixed rates are not bad, right? That's a pretty good fixed rate. If we take a look here and we switch it to maybe the 3-year, you can see those numbers. They're not too much different there. So that could be an option for a lot of people. If you like having the same payment for a period of time, then fixed rate is a great option, and it's significantly lower than it previously was. Now, let's say that you're a variable rate person, like I have always been until recently, and it worked really well for a long time. So let's switch this over to variable here. Right now, the variable, 4.25 to 4.5, basically. So the people that would be taking variable right now, there's a few different reasons you would maybe take it. Maybe one is like you have a renewal coming up, but you're going to sell in the next year. So you take a variable because the penalty is going to be less if you have to break that mortgage. That's something that we're seeing a lot right now. But if you believe the Bank of Canada is going to continue to cut and they're going to get that overnight rate to at least 2%, that's where the variable rate probably, after prime minus whatever discount you end up getting, gets below the 3 or 5-year fixed rate that you took. But there's a risk there. Like right now, the fixed rate is still a little bit below the variable rate, or they're very, very close. In a kind of more typical market, the variable is a little bit lower than the fixed. And I've said for a while that when the dust settles here, whenever that ends up happening, I do believe that probably the fixed rates still remain around 4 and maybe the variables in the 3.5 to 3.7 range. But there's not going to be that much of a delta at the end of the day. And then the third question I want to address is a question that I'm getting from the viewers of this channel and people actively trying to sell real estate right now is, well, if Bank of Canada cuts again, will it help? Will it help me sell my home faster? And I'm a super optimistic person, but I don't think it's going to change much. They've had 7 rate cuts in a row. If that didn't do it, why would 2 more 25-point cuts make a real difference? Now, psychologically, we see in the news headlines that Bank of Canada cut rates. Perhaps that gets some buyers off the sidelines. And like, if you're watching this video, you're aware how this works. When Bank of Canada cuts rates, that only impacts the variable rate, right? The 5-year bond yield is what impacts the 5-year fixed rate. So we know that, but how much percentage of Canada actually knows that when they're reading these headlines? I don't know. I'd hope at least 50-50 at this point with everything that's going on recently, but we don't know. So maybe psychologically it helps a little bit, but I don't believe it's going to increase prices at this point. There's too much going on elsewhere in the marketplace. Maybe sales volume picks up a little bit here, but I think sellers just need to be realistic that in today's market, and I'm speaking mostly for the city of Toronto because that's the area that I'm an expert in, you have to be positioned as the best available option or you're not going to sell. And we're helping sellers do that every day by frankly having some kind of tough conversations. My final point today is just how things have changed over the last year. We are all hyper-focused on what is the sale price. Have the average prices actually started going down in different markets across Canada? And even in markets like Toronto, where we saw a little bit of dips year over year and condos are experiencing some downward pressure in prices right now. If you actually did the numbers, and this is assuming you're buying with a mortgage. If you're buying cash, it's a whole different conversation. But if you did the numbers and you looked at like the actual cost of ownership for the average Toronto property this year right now versus a year ago, 12 months ago, it's about $1,000 cheaper per month. And it's not because prices went down. It's because mortgage rates went from 5.5 to 4.2. And specifically in the condo market here in the city of Toronto, yeah, there was a bit of a dip in average sale price, but just because of mortgage rates and you look at the carrying costs, the average condo on a monthly basis to own it, not the sale price, but the cost per month, is down 20% versus 12 months ago. So these are the numbers I think buyers and sellers need to actually understand to make educated decisions in this market. I'd love to know what you think Bank of Canada is going to do next. Let me know in the comments below. Have a great day, and remember, home is where your story begins.